the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
AVWeek is produced and distributed through a partnership with AVNation and Rave Publications. For more information, go to ravepubs.com/AVNation. This is AVWeek, episode 45, recorded Friday, June 8th, 2012. How we do AVWeek.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. It is time for AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Tim Albright, your host. This week, all the way, the lead up to InfoComm, we have been highlighting our monthly shows. And this is the last one we have because InfoComm actually starts 3 days from this recording, or no, 4 days from this recording. So our last one here is going to be our House of Worship show. It's called HOWcast. And this one is a labor of love for me, kind of like the education show is, because I've got a lot of experience in House of Worship. I still volunteer at my local church. And so the other two guys that we have that are usually on the show, one is no stranger to this parts, is Michael Drainer. He's from Tech Electronics. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Mr. Albright.
And the other one is also no stranger to this parts. It is Matt D. Scott, our token Canadian. So,
token.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Awesome. Actually, one other person that's going to join us this week, who's on a new council for InfoComm, then we'll talk about that in a second, is Mark DelGuidice. He's from a company called Wire Wizards out in California. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Real briefly, what is HOWcast? HOWcast is kind of like the EdTech show, only it's for House of Worship. It's kind of for and about people who volunteer on a weekly basis. You deal with AV, or you're one of your wheelhouses, one of your main sources of revenue is House of Worship, and so we talk about it from an integrator standpoint, but also as all three of us are generally volunteers for our local houses of worship. We also talk about it from the church side as well. So check it out if you would. All of these monthly podcasts, as well as the weekly, the AV Week, and the daily show we do with, I almost said with Jon Stewart, the daily rave we do with, that would be really cool. That's
quite flattering to Mr. K.
Yeah, with Gary K. We do that, and you can find all of these at ravepubs.com/AVNation, ravepubs.com/AVNation. This week we are going to do some actual AV news. We're going to talk about an article that I found fascinating. A gentleman wrote and says, I don't mean to be an alarmist, but the TV business may start collapsing anytime soon, so run for the hills. Cisco is suing TiVo for some godforsaken reason, and Google and Facebook both want a company called Vivo. But first, the week before InfoComm, they have a little show out in the West Coast called E3. I've always wanted to go to E3 just because I'm a geek and I like games, but that's what it is. It's a big gaming conference. And this week, one of the big things that was announced was Microsoft SmartGlass. And if you paid attention to any kind of technology news, one of the interesting points was the fact that Microsoft was buying up every version of SmartGlass.com, SmartGlass.tv. So I mean, they were honing the market even before the announcement. So it was obvious they were going to have something called SmartGlass. What SmartGlass is SmartGlass is Microsoft's play for the living room. It's their foray into kind of Apple TV land or Roku land. One of the announcements was the fact that you can now get Amazon, the on-demand Amazon video on the Xbox now. So now they're taking the Xbox and they're moving it beyond just a gaming system, which I personally think is a pretty decent gaming system. It's one of the two that I have. But you're also able to stream movies and stuff like that. So Matt, is this something where, first of all, does it make sense for Microsoft to make this play? And secondly, is this going to be something where we're going to have to start worrying about integrating into the systems that we put in residentials?
Yeah, I think it is. It's a smart play for Microsoft because that is becoming one of the next biggest, not only kind of computing realms, but also one of the biggest entertainment realms is that convergence of our digital computer lives and our TV watching. One of the biggest things that almost every big show has right now when you're watching it is they've got in the little corner, they've got a little icon that's showing their Twitter hashtag for the show, so you can join the conversation about the show. So Microsoft knows that at some point down the road, this is just going to become another major market for them that they need to get into. And yeah, I do think it is something that we are going to have to, start really integrating properly. I know we've done a ton of work integrating their Xbox and all the Xbox source controls and apps into a lot of our customers' systems because they're just, they're wanting to be able to access their content from there. We're seeing a lot of people using those strictly not just to access their cable suppliers' content, but as a better interface than what the cable company supplies. So yeah, it's definitely something that they're going to go after really heavy, and it's something we're going to see just continue to grow.
Michael, you're not a resi guy. You guys do mostly education and higher ed and stuff like that. Is this something that you're going to have to worry about at all? Stuff like not just the Microsoft Xbox, but stuff like Roku and these boxes that do more than just one thing?
Absolutely. I mean, we're already seeing the integration of Apple TVs, Roku devices, Western digital media players, and things like that into our systems for a multitude of reasons. And educators are wanting to use it to stream from their iPads, to access online content, a multitude of media outlets that they can access with these devices. Now, that said, Microsoft has been trying to play catch up with Apple in this particular segment for quite some time. And this is another attempt to continue to try to whittle away at Apple's market share. I don't know how successful they're going to be. I mean, building the whole thing on a game console that costs in the neighborhood of $300, $400, $500, depending on the console you're buying.
$99 here real soon.
Well, yeah, I mean, once they get to that point, but I just don't know. I don't. Time's going to tell on this one. It seems to be, like I said, just a play to catch up.
Well, Mark, you guys, your company, Wire Wizards, has been around for a long time. Is this? I mentioned the $99 one, Xbox, kind of tongue in cheek, but not really, because it is a real product and it's going to be a little disruptive. I mean, it does more than the Apple TV, and if Michael's right, you guys are going to have to start worrying about integrating all these little things. Is this kind of like the one, I don't want to say the one ring to rule them all, but it does an awful lot. So is this a great step for Microsoft to kind of say, hey, we're $100 too, and now we do everything that the Apple TV does?
I think it's a very smart step for them. They've got to keep up, and it's going to continue to be about price point. So, if you can get a product like this for that kind of a price, I think it's going to have viability.
Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. So, this week, I mentioned the Daily Show with Gary Kay. Earlier, we did a story this week, and if you don't know what the Daily Show is, it's the Daily Rave. I should probably stop saying that because I could get sued by one of my former employers. So that'd be kind of fun. The Daily Rave, we talked about some of the technologies that you need to pay attention to at InfoComm next week, and one of them is the twisted pair. One of them is the wired stuff that's coming down the pike here next week that you're going to see an awful lot of. And one of the things we were talking about was the ability to send audio and video and control down one piece of twisted pair, Cat 5, Cat 6, Cat 7, whichever cat you want, but sure. You need a transmitter and a receiver in this scenario. Now, sure. Michael, what's one of the drawbacks?
Yes, Tim.
Oh, hush. here's and like 2 or 3 days later, this story came across my desk, and it's like, okay, here's the next generation. Here's the next evolution of this. Projection Design is releasing a projector that has basically a built-in receiver for HD base T, right? So now all you need is a transmitter and then a Projection Design projector. Is this the next? Is this the next evolution? And should we see a lot more of these? And does this give HD base T a leg up on stuff like AVB?
I don't know that necessarily gives it a leg up on AVB. I think that HD base T, and I could be very, very wrong on this, so don't, at the end of the year come back and say you're a fool for saying that.
I record these for a reason, Michael.
Yeah, I know. It's the natural progression, though. Traditionally, what happens is a new technology arises, and it's a standalone technology, and then you start to see bits and pieces of it integrated into other components that are tied to that technology, and then before you know it, it's part of those other components. And that's what we're seeing here with HD base T and with AVB down the road. I see more and more manufacturers building interfaces into their hardware that's going to eliminate the middleware, not middleware, but the middle hardware.
I like that word, middleware.
Well, middleware would be a software, so middle hardware.
It makes sense. Hang on for a second. I am poking fun at you, but not really, because it makes sense. Middleware is a perfect word for that, because it's an interloper between your source and your destination, right?
That's absolutely right. So what's this do to all these manufacturers who have built their entire business on middleware, where you're already starting to see them move into other technologies? So these guys that were making just the transmitters, receivers, the little adapters, all the little boxes that move content back and forth, what have they done? They're starting to build switchers. They're starting to build scalers. They're starting to build other devices to augment the business that they know they're going to start losing as these technologies start to be integrated into the end user devices.
Okay, so Mark, does that mean that we should see more people, whether that's Mitsubishi or Panasonic or whoever, start integrating, whether that's HD base T or maybe AVB into their chipsets, where now all you have is maybe you have two quote unquote LAN ports, maybe you have two RJ45 connectors. One is your actual LAN, the other one is your twisted pair, wired your wired video.
Absolutely. I think it's going to evolve exactly in this direction, and it makes perfect sense. Just like the evolution of control systems with Crestron and AMX, all the manufacturers that are looking forward are going to have to looking at creating more usability and ease of installation in this kind of way.
Well, and actually, if you think about it, they're already moving, not necessarily with the video itself, but Tim, they're doing it with the control. And as Mark just said, Crestron, you're already getting Crestron in the projector, right? I don't have to go out. Right, exactly. But that's just the progression of that technology. What did you have to do before? You had to have a separate processor or a device sitting outside the projector to be able to control it. Well, now I can actually talk straight to the projector and integrate it with Room View and be able to get all the things I had before. We saw it with PCs back in the day where you had your motherboard, you had your VGA card, and I'm really reaching back here. Then they started integrating it into the device because it just made more sense to put the chipset on board. So, it's just a natural progression. The real question is going to be what technology is going to prevail.
Bingo.
Is it going to be HD base T? Is it going to be AVB? Is it going to be digital media? Is it going to be NetLinks? We don't know. Wow. We don't know at this stage of the game.
I'm as big of Crestron fanboy as the next. Well, I'm a bigger Crestron fanboy than most next guys. I don't think it's going to be digital media. I mean, that's too proprietary.
I said that in jest, but it was.
If there's some secret sauce back in the back room where we don't know this, if DM is based on HD base T or based on AVB, that would be cool.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to start to see a lot of the proprietary formats drop by the wayside, especially as the industry starts to come around open standards. And that's something that the AV industry has fought for a long time, that IT has done really well. IT has really solidified itself around open standards, so it makes it easier for manufacturers to build products that are cross-compatible. It makes it easier to integrate these devices. And as the AV industry starts to come in alignment with that through things like the AVNU Alliance, through the Collaborative Communications Alliance and different people along those lines, you're going to see this stuff really come to a head and really start to go to that next generation of integration.
You know what the great thing about standards are? There's so many of them. Matt, this leads us actually into your neck of the woods.
Canada?
Yes, actually, Canada.
Excellent.
Oh, Canada. By the way, I think it's sad
that
there's not a Canadian team in the hockey finals, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah, but actually, one of our hometown boys is leading the Kings quite well in Drew Downey.
Everybody that plays hockey is Canadian, so that's
pretty much.
This is true. Yeah.
But into residential, because another story we have is one of Mitsubishi's displays has got Room View, which is Crestron's asset management software, like Michael was talking about, how for years now projectors have had this thing where you plug it into the network and you can see it on Crestron's asset management software. Well, now there's a display. So, I mean, is it going to be open standards, or is it going to be whichever manufacturer has the biggest stick or has the biggest carrot that will let people, that will coerce people into integrating their proprietary stuff into their devices?
Well, I would love to say that it's going to be open and we're going to, have whatever we want, but it's really going to come down to who has the biggest stick and who has literally the money and the research to push their standards essentially onto all these manufacturers. And it'll also be, it's not like we're going to see FSR panels come, or not FSR panels, but flat screens and displays and projectors coming with FSR panel code built in. Yeah, because they're such a small manufacturer. Yeah, they make a fairly decent product, but it's not Crestron, it's not ANMX. Those are the ones that we're going to see. And, again, it's that whole, I think it's just going to become harder and harder for, say, smaller companies to really compete and continue to do this stuff, because when it comes right down to it, if you've got a Crestron environment already, why would you not spec a product that has Crestron built in?
True.
It takes me back to those early days of computers when, it was really a big deal if you had Intel inside.
Well, but let's not think too short here, because, we all know that the IT industry is converging more and more into the AV industry is converging more and more into IT.
Watch yourself.
It has,
If
exactly.
you don't say it, they won't know it's happening.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Shh, little voice, inside voice.
The IT are going to rule AV. But in all seriousness, though, Crestron is making a good move for the time being in putting all this in. And I don't want to mix video delivery with control. I was just using that as an example of how we're seeing this integration. But until the industry starts to adapt standards, such IT, I cannot talk today.
IT-like standards.
They love standards, and there's a protocol called SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, that we use in the IP world. And until the control system manufacturers start to adapt a standard, something along the lines of SNMP, you're not going to see the global adoption of integrated control. You're going to see it in pockets. You're going to see Mitsubishi's putting it in theirs, but Sony's not. Panasonic is going to use AMX inside instead of Crestron, and you're going to have bits and pieces that are just scattered throughout the market. But eventually, the industry is going to evolve, and they're going to say, hey, the demand requires that we come up with a standard for this, such as happened with the video delivery systems, and that is why something like AVB has come to the forefront.
Okay, hang on for a second. And I would strongly disagree with you when you say that there is a standard that has developed or come to the forefront when it comes to video. Because, hang on for a second, let me finish the thought. Because we've had video over twisted pair for, I'm going to just kind of shoot this out off the hip here. Yeah, it's 7-8 years. It may be 10, but stably and all this. Let's say 7-8 years. In that time, nobody has developed a non-proprietary standard that has reached a critical mass. AMX has their solution. Extron has their solution. Crestron has their solution. They started with quick media, so let's start with that, and then that developed into digital media. So all these guys have these silos that are very Apple-esque, and I love Apple, not anything about that, but are very Apple-esque, where once you're in their ecosystem, you're in it, and to get out and into another ecosystem is going to cost you a lot of money to buy the middleware.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The point I was trying to make is that for the first time in the history that I know of in video distribution, we are on the cusp of coming up with a standard that is being more globally adopted than ever, because all the traditional distribution mediums have been highly proprietary. And that's why you see people that are exclusive to a particular manufacturer when it comes to their distribution. Or they've got this manufacturer in this room and this manufacturer in this room, and guess what? The two don't talk without running through device,
some weird thing.
Exactly. Or you have to break it down to baseband video before you can put it back into the twisted pair format to move it the other direction. It's exciting to see that our industry is starting to adopt standards and starting to move that direction, but it's a long time. The time horizon on this is still a good ways out on the video distribution, and it is a long, long way out on control standards.
I think these companies are going to continue to try to stay in control of these types of systems by making them proprietary. But, we've seen this before with Sony, with Betamax years ago. It was VHS. We've seen this over and over. Apple's done a good job of maintaining control over their types of systems, and is now going to be coming out with TVs and all kinds of other gadgets. But I think that in the end, the more open architecture type approaches, where you're able to take a Mitsubishi projector and an AMX control system, and they're going to work together automatically, is eventually going to be the larger end of what's adopted.
You're absolutely right, Mark. You're absolutely right. Okay. And your example of Sony was a very good example, because what happened to them? I mean, it was the death of them. I mean,
well, no, hang on for a second. Betamax wasn't the death of them. They lost that fight. They poured a lot of money into it, and what do? They learned their lesson, and 20 years later, they poured more money into the HD DVD versus Blu-ray fight, and they won that one.
They won that one.
They did win that one, but it's not doing them any favors. Let's look at them today.
Well, that's because they couldn't see past the actual physical medium.
But that's a whole nother story. So
it is. Let me ask you this, and Mark, we'll start with you on this one. Is there a company then that has the coffers, or the big stick, or the big carrot, to go to the most manufacturers to get a critical mass, to get these into the most devices? And I ask this because the two biggest companies, nothing against Extron, but in my mind at least, the two biggest ones we have is Crestron and AMX. One is a privately held company, one is a publicly traded company.
Well, that's a good question. I would say the other two that are in that ballpark is Extron, and I think that Cisco's got their eye.
Oh.
This, and it's, let's not talk about the elephant in the room, right? So, you're going to see some sparks fly over all this, but eventually they're going to have to work together on one level or another, and you're going to see matrix switchers come out with the transmitters already built in. And do you want to make that proprietary so that it can only work with our Extron equipment? You bet Extron's going to want it to work that way. They've gone into making speakers, they've gone into making little amplifiers, all sorts of stuff that technically would be outside of their original range of products, as a way to grow into a one-stop shop. So I don't know, we'll see who wins that battle eventually. Right now there's a lot of room because there's a lot of different formats. Just with video you've got a mess of different formats, even just with HDMI. And, you know, I think water's going to find its own level eventually. But it's going to be pretty interesting next couple of years.
It will. It'll be a neat fight to watch because I don't want to be in the middle of it. One of the stories we got from Engadget is about standards, which is always a fun thing to talk about. And it's the ITU. They have recently tried to set forth two different standards. One I think is really valid. The other one I hate because it's 3D. So let's talk about this for a second. The one is what they're calling UHD TV, which, if you don't know what that is the next generation. So your 1080p is no longer the best resolution you can get. It's no longer HD. Now it's UHD. So ultra high definition TV is what it stands for. The other standard that they're working on right now is for 3D TV for both 720 and 1080 deliveries. Matt, is this something? I mean, I'm not saying that these guys shouldn't do this, but shouldn't they be more focused on the UHD part, the 4K and the 8K stuff? And every smart person, with the exception of James Cameron that I've read, has said that 3D is a fad. It's going to run its cycle and then kind of go away.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I really wish they would focus more on the UHD segment of the market opposed to all the glitchy little 3D stuff. Because let's face it, I as we all know on this show, nobody really likes 3D. Nobody really thinks it's the coolest thing out there. Nobody wants to wear glasses. And yes, I know they're working towards glass-free systems. But again, just because they can mock it up in Final Cut in the commercial labs and make it look like it's coming out of the screen and it's right in your face, it never looks that way no matter what it is. Heck, you can go see something in Real D at the Cineplex, and it can be okay, but that's still not the way I want to watch CNN.
No.
I don't want to watch Wolf Blitzer coming out of the screen at me because he scares me.
There are some.
And his name is Wolf. Like, come on. Yeah. But, it's just, like, again, I don't want to watch CSI whatever coming out at the screen at me because, honestly, I'm not sitting down and watching that much TV. I'm not looking for that type of experience. I'd rather have, heck, to be honest, I'd rather have full 1080p resolution on everything we watch before they even touch 3D and UHD and all this other stuff. I'd be really happy with just true 1080, like filmed on 1080, recorded in 1080, and actually broadcast in 1080.
Michael?
And there's my spiel.
Yeah, well, that actually leads right into Michael, because this is Michael's an integrator currently, but his background is broadcast. And he and I have for years gone back and forth. I have Charter Cable, and we have a number of HD packages. And Michael has for years told me that that's not really HD. It's squashed and quashed and compressed.
Preach it.
So, Mr. Drainer, is this even worth discussing? Because we're not even getting HD now. Is that right?
Let's not even talk about it.
Come on. That's the whole idea here.
I mean, come on. We have dumbed our society down to the point that we accept substandard quality. It started with audio compression. It's still going on with video compression. We're seeing it with satellite and cable and other things. Now, does the average user notice the difference?
Nope.
With the new low loss compression algorithms and things like that, they've gotten much, much better. Okay, now keep in mind, my broadcast days were about 5 years ago when I was really active in satellite distribution and things like that of content. So, the compression has gotten much better than what it was in years past. But the typical user is not going to notice the difference. Do I think we need to be wasting our time on 3D? I've made my statement known on this one, and I will preach it from the rooftops until the day I die. 3D is a fad. It's not here to stay in the residential market. Cinema, yes. Resi, no. Displays, no. Unless you're getting into signage, special applications, I could see coming up with some guidelines and standards for that. But, I mean, quite honestly, I'm with Matt on that one. Focus on the 8K stuff. Focus on the extremely high-resolution stuff. Let's really start working on that. Let's work on standards for compression and really how do we deliver this stuff over existing limited broadband networks in an effective way and maintain quality, not on hey, what's the best way to make this ball bounce out into the living room. Because, I mean, we've talked about multiple articles and we've talked to professionals in the medical industry who say that the number of people who can even legitimately experience 3D is not that vast, right? I mean, myself, and maybe this is why I've got such a passion against it, because I can't see 3D. I mean, you and I stood at InfoComm last year in Orlando with this really cool setup. I don't remember whose booth it was.
No, it was the 3D Pavilion.
Was it the Pavilion that we were at?
Because there was multiple vendors there.
Yeah, and Tim is sitting here seeing this great image and this. It
was like an F-16. It was cool.
Right. I look at it and I see two lines in a blurred image, and it's like, okay, well, what's the point in this?
You got to open both eyes, Michael.
Is that how it works?
Well, it was Friday.
It
was Friday, and he was tired.
It was not International Talk Like a Pirate Day, so you were supposed to remove that eye patch.
But the eye patch is sexy.
No, it is.
No, it's not.
At least that's what they tell me.
You know what I can't wait for, though, with all this? I can't wait till we get the UHD and the 4K and the 8K, and we can film the ocean like 3 more times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and have Morgan Freeman do a whole nother, commentary, talk over,
already done
voiceover.
It on IMAX. We've done it with
exactly. Yeah, let's just keep doing it.
Like the whole.
This reminds me of a little term called quadraphonic sound.
Oh, nice.
Now it's recoined as surround, right?
Exactly. So in the long run, we ended up with 17 albums released in quadraphonic sound over a period of 3 or 4 years. People running out and buying these systems, and it kind of fizzled because it turned out that the average consumer didn't really want to go buy all new records, didn't really want to go out and buy all these extra speakers, and it took the video delivery and home entertainment to really bring surround sound into being, which is just a fancy version of a reinvented version of quadraphonic. I think where you're going to see 3D is going to be in military simulations, certainly in certain forms of advertising, maybe in medical simulations, so you can teach a classroom in 3D from Japan in New York City. Specialized applications is probably where it's going to really have its best market. The rest of us just want to see the ocean in 4 times as much detail.
And Morgan Freeman's voice, because that's just cool.
It's got to have Morgan Freeman's voice.
I have a better idea. Let's refine holographic technology so you can truly, walk around it, and then we can get Tupac back out there. And
I'm still waiting for my holodeck. I'm just saying.
Learn Star Trek.
I follow one of the guys I follow on Twitter. His name's Will Wheaton. He used to be on Next Generation, and I think of that all the time when I.
It's Will Wheaton.
Stop it! It's a
Wheaton.
That's a Family Guy reference.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. Why are you doing that?
Bradbury predicted all this.
He did.
Yes, he did.
And what was the result of all that technology overload? People rebelled against it.
We became subservient to our technology. So, yeah. Speaking of being subservient to a giant evil corporation, Cisco is suing TiVo. Come on. I mean, okay. There's for those of you who aren't familiar with biblical stories that I grew up with. There's a story about the king of Israel named David, and one of his prophets came to him and said, there was a guy, there was a big king, and he had tons of sheep, and he went along one day and he saw this little sheep owned by one old farmer, and it was the only sheep the guy had, and he went and made his soldiers steal the sheep. What should happen to him? And David was like, well, that guy's just a jerk. He should be killed. And long story short, it was the story of Bathsheba, and that's exactly what David had done. That's what I feel about Cisco. I mean, come on, leave TiVo alone. They're suing them over 4 DVR patents. And according to the article in Engadget, is claiming that TiVo is basically thumbing their nose at Cisco. Michael, should they just leave TiVo alone and let them eventually get bought by somebody, I guess?
Leave the poor little critter alone. I mean, did you see him? He's crying on the article here.
On the link to the story, yeah, he's crying.
Isn't TiVo dying a slow death anyway?
I know, that's my
Well,
thing.
it is, but that's why I say leave them alone. Just let them die a peaceful death.
Yeah, I mean, I can get a DVR from my cable company for $4 a month that blows TiVo out of the water, and I don't have to sign a 20-year contract agreement and have a telephone line hooked up. And, I've got a friend that I've gone over and serviced his home theater system, which I don't normally do residential. But, people ask me to do that stuff, and sometimes for them. And his TiVo system is an absolute nightmare. Yeah. And he bought a lifetime subscription package, and this was before HD. And now, for him to go to HD, they want him to resubscribe a new lifetime package.
Oh.
He's absolutely furious about it, so he's watching everything in standard def. He's a stockbroker. He only has TiVo so that he can watch, Mad Money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, the resolution really doesn't matter to him.
Hold on, he's an actual stockbroker that watches Mad Money?
You cannot watch Jim Cramer and not have it high definition. I'm sorry. You are not a true financial guy if you're watching Jim Cramer in standard
We got to see him in 3D. I want to see Jim in 3D.
No, good Lord.
Throwing the bulls at you.
I want that bull to jump out at me.
Yeah. So, I'd be furious if I'd been sold that package. What do you mean? That's not lifetime, but if we go to HD, it's a different ballgame.
Well, okay, so let's bring this back around to one of our other stories. What happens when we go to 4K or 8K? I mean, good Lord, I'm only so old, but by the time I expire, who knows what the resolution will be?
So if it goes to 4K, I can call my cable company and get a 4K box, and they're not charge me anything extra. Maybe $1 or $2 more, but it's not. They're not locking me into some ridiculous kind of situation. Just like a lot of the cell phone companies with the contracts. Those things are going to fall away because people want flexibility. They want to be able to upgrade and have it the way they want it, be able to customize it. So some companies are more successful than others. So I agree. I don't understand what Cisco's trying to get out of that case at all.
That's royalties. It's all about money at the end of the day. They're just
it's a power play.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because they want to take those patents and integrate it into the new Cisco TV that they're going to release to compete with Apple TV, which is going to be released to compete with the Xbox integration of the Microsoft Glass, and it's just a big. Yeah.
Can I
sorry.
Put you on that?
Sure. From Business Insider, which is not something I normally read because I'm not that smart. A guy by the name of Henry Blodgett, who is really smart, makes a correlation between
kind of smart.
Huh?
Kind of smart.
Well, he's kind of smart, and we will test his smartness here. He correlates the downturn of newspaper readerships kind of to the downturn in what he sees as TV market or the TV business in general. His points are this: most people, in his words, most people hardly ever watch television shows when they're broadcast anymore because of either they can download them on Apple or Amazon, or they can DVR them. We rarely watch the ads in those shows because of the DVR. People watch either movies or other free videos such as YouTube on their TVs, and they get a lot of their content and a lot of their news and information from the internet. A lot is a subjective term. So Matt, is the TV industry in trouble, and how does that, if they are, how does that affect us? I mean, I don't see it really affecting us because all we really cared about is the content itself. I mean, we don't care if it comes off the internet or off of a DVD player, right?
Right. And I would say that it is to a degree in trouble, but I don't know how troublesome it is. You know what I mean? Like, yes, it's in trouble, and yes, we're slowly moving away from large format. We're doing a lot on smaller screens, but I don't know if that's really going to affect something or affect this in the long run. I.e., yes, do I watch Netflix on my iPhone? Yes, I do. I just downloaded the first season of Sons of Anarchy in case I get bored on the flight to Infocom.
I love that show.
Great.
My wife loves that show.
I'll watch it on my iPad. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
That being said, am I watching it on my phone or my iPad because I want to? Or is there a lifestyle reason behind it? For me, it's always a lifestyle thing. Why do I watch stuff on my phone? Well, because I'm in bed and my wife is sleeping and I'm wide awake. And if I turn the TV on, it'll wake her up. Mm-hmm. Why am I watching it on an iPad in the plane? Well, because last time I checked, Delta did not approve of me trying to carry on my 60-inch plasma. That could be a problem.
No, you can do it. You just have to buy 2 seats for that.
Oh, okay.
But
well, if I do 2 seats, then it would be worth it, actually.
But the important part there is you're still watching it.
Exactly.
That's never going to fall away. People want to be entertained. They want visual. They're always going to be watching some kind of content on some kind of content delivery system. Yeah. I think what it is, it's just an evolution. So the old style network broadcast model is definitely threatened, just like printed newspapers. But I know people who still love opening up a newspaper and actually reading the articles. If they don't want to, some people don't want to read that stuff online. And if I go to watch a TV show online, I have to watch a commercial first. Please wait for this commercial to play until, and then we'll let you see the show. So they're going to continue to figure out ways to force you to see some advertising. Mm-hmm. The advertising revenues are going to continue to drive what these technologies are. And I don't see that. I see that evolving. But, you're not going to be spending $40 million to build a station that's only going to transmit one type of media. Right now, my company is involved in a project that's kind of interesting with PAC Engineering and Viper Cabling here in San Diego. Some folks just bought the Union Tribune, and like many papers around the country, it's somewhat in trouble. And this guy has decided that what he wants to do is build a TV station that's 24 hours a day, San Diego local news of all different types. And, if you really think about it, that gets into like restaurant reviews and, going, arts and media and all sorts of other things besides just what we call hard news. And they're real confident they're going to be successful, because not so much because of just counting on viewership over TV, but also looking ahead towards streaming that. There's not a lot of live news shows you can watch right now that are streamed on the net. Well, you're going to see that change real quick. Yeah. And so you're going to see companies like this coming at it from all sides. They're already sitting there writing the news content. Why not use that same content that's going to print to broadcast on the air? So I think it's a trend that, these newspapers are either going to see new ways to reinvent themselves or they'll fall away,
Well, is this kind of why, Mark, a couple other stories that we had that plays right into that. One is the fact that the report came out this last week that Netflix is beating Apple as one of the main movie sources online. The other one is that Google and Facebook are kind of duking it out for something called Vivo. I mean, is that because these companies with really smart people see exactly what you're talking about?
Yeah, and they want to make it easy. I can watch Netflix on any number of devices.
1,000 devices, yeah.
Right? But again, my impression of the Apple stuff is I've got to have Apple stuff to watch.
Well, and in addition to that, though, not to cut you off, Tim, with the Apple stuff, I don't pay a subscription and get access to everything.
No, I buy everything you watch.
Yes, that's exactly. I have an Apple TV, the second generation Apple TV. I love it for Netflix. I love it for accessing my iTunes library. I love it for Vimeo and YouTube and things like that. Occasionally, I'll buy a show on it that I missed on broadcast. Or that I didn't get on my DVR, right? Mm-hmm. That didn't record for whatever reason. But outside of that, I don't use it for the traditional Apple TV type stuff.
Okay. Now, I've got to agree with you completely because we do the exact same thing. We just had our last chain of disc, rental stores closed down.
So now there's really nowhere to go rent a Blu-ray. And I'm not buying every Blu-ray that comes out. Our cable company supplies videos that you can pay for and rent and watch, but even their HD is laughable HD, not even to get into the audio side of it. So the one thing I use my Apple TV for in its true form the most is I rent movies on it.
Right.
And I pay for each one, but even with the amount of movies I watch, I still spend more time on my Apple TV with Netflix because, again, I pay $8 a month and I get I get the Canadian version of everything.
Does that mean there's an A at the end of every sentence?
Oh,
no, but it just means we don't get most of anything. Movies available.
Well, you know what? I mean, not to digress too much here, but actually, you kind of surprised me there, Matt. That I don't buy Blu-rays. Okay, I rent Blu-rays from Netflix if I want something on Blu-ray because I don't know how long Blu-ray is going to be around. Quite honestly, I don't invest a lot.
This is Canada, dude. We don't have Blu-ray delivery service. Netflix is just web.
Oh, really?
Netflix is just web.
So
it's literally, we've got to go. If I want a Blu-ray, and I agree with you that yes, I do think they'll go away. I do think they'll die. My concern is how long will it be before we get true, Blu-ray quality in some form of streaming.
Right. So
whether you guys get it next year in the States, we'll be 5 years down the road.
Right.
We just got the first networked DVR here, and they run commercials and act as if it's this brand new technology that our cable company came up with. And I'm like, no, this has been on DirecTV for 5 freaking years, man. What are you doing?
Hey, if you get the Dish Network version, you could skip over the network commercials. Yeah, there you go. But I did want to address what Mark was talking about with the broadcasters and that going by the wayside and at the local news and everything we were just talking about there. Coming from as a former broadcaster and working at World, I built television stations for 6 years for a broadcast group here in St. Louis, and one of the things that we started to see was people moving away from the traditional broadcast model. I think we're all seeing that. I think the industry is recognizing that, and it's on demand. I want it now. I want it the way I want it. And the only thing that I see that is really going to keep the local broadcast station alive is local news, at least in the medium term, next 5, 10, 15 years, something along those lines. But as more and more media is converted to web-based streaming and it becomes more accessible to those who are don't have the resources to buy the bandwidth and subscribe to the services, that's when we're going to see the transition. Until it becomes accessible to everyone, the broadcaster's still going to be alive and well. Not well, but they're still going to be alive.
It goes back to a couple of weeks ago. Warren Buffett, who is not exactly a stupid man when it comes to money, purchased a bunch of newspapers, local newspapers, for that very same reason. I mean, it's this hyper localness that will keep, honestly, mass media alive. It's something that I felt for years. I mean, when I was in radio, when satellite radio started up and coming, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, it's the end of radio." Well, no, it's not. People will still want, local weather and local traffic. Because here's the thing, deep and down, we're all kind of, we're all kind of self-centered, and we like our local stuff. I mean, I'm in St. Louis. I like to know what's going on in 270. Which is a highway that just loops and loops and loops around St. Louis. If you're in Boston or you're in New York, I'm sure that there is that local highway. And so we all want to know what's going on in our local area. So whether that's newspaper or TV or radio, it will all still be around. Just depends on how we get it. So
yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I think the success of this evolution is really firmly based in local stuff. That's why the Tribune here is doing this, because I can turn that on and watch a show about the local restaurants, the local music programs, what's going on in the theater, what's going on the highway. And I think some of that eventually will be sort of on demand. What local news do I want to see right now?
But you're absolutely
multi-platform broadcasting. Not just here's what we're talking about at the moment. but which thing do you want us to talk about right now? What do you want to hear? And, even just like with the on-demand movies, the cable companies and the satellite companies are looking at, giving you that instant gratification on whatever level you want. And I think that the local stuff is going to be a strong base for that,
You're absolutely right, Mark, and that's where it has to go to survive. Because I don't know how about you guys, but I don't sit there and watch the local news through every story to see everything going on. Yeah. I hit the website, I look at the articles that are interesting to me, I hit those video clips only, and I watch those just to get the information I want. I don't want to sit there and just, ad nauseum listen to every single thing that's going on. I want to know what's important to me at that moment in time. And so as they get to that delivery method, that's what's going to sustain them. So I see that the broadcast thing as a short term. And when I say short term, I mean, that's, it's still years, but it's not going to last in the long run.
It's still years, and you have the technology trickling out to the rest of the world as well.
Right.
You know what the biggest broadcast network in the world is? Trinity Broadcasting.
I was going to say TBN. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know this because I've done a lot of work with them.
Yeah.
And 90% of their projects are in other parts of the world because you have what we call emerging markets.
Right.
And so all these folks have is a standard def TV. Well, guess what? Old broadcast equipment from the United States can be shipped down to South America, reinstalled, and you've got a whole new viable advertising market happening.
Wow. Speaking of which, I just decommissioned an old analog, a 5K analog transmitter on channel 50. So if anybody out there needs a transmitter for a third world country, let me know. I got one for you.
It's in his backyard right now.
Interested in that.
All right, real quickly, guys, before we say goodbye and all of us pack our bags and head to Vegas. This comes to us from Forbes. Again, I'm not that smart, so I usually don't read this. But the article, the title of the article is called "Is Your Firm Running an IT Deficit?" And before you yell at me and remind me that we're on an AV show, the article itself got me thinking. It goes on to talk about how over the last few years, IT companies or just companies in general have been cutting their IT staff to save money, and they've got these old antiquated systems. And stop me if this sounds familiar, and you can correlate this to AV, where you got one or two guys, or maybe no guys, who really know what the system was that was put in originally and how it works. And now we have to upgrade, right? Now we have digital. In the IT world, they have IPv6. Now we have, digital and content management and all this other stuff. They have a name for it. It's called IT debt, and it means you have a shortage of intelligence, a shortage of manpower, a shortage of talent in the IT area for these companies. And I'm glad that all three of you are integrators, because this really does help. Mark, I'll start with you on this. Do you think that companies have an AV deficit when it comes to their infrastructure?
I think in the moment, yes. I think, the word convergence has been bounced around Infocom.
Ad nauseum.
Just ad nauseum. But that's really what's going on. And then the IT world is reshaping how AV products are installed and sold as well. A lot of the old models are starting to fall away. I hear a lot of talk about that. So, I think that there is a deficit, but I also think that you'll have new talent pop up to take advantage of the opportunities and to come in and help develop interoperability and more methods and platforms.
My question is it really an issue of talent? Because I do think there's a deficit in talent in the AV industry and being able to work in the converged world. But is it an issue where, as they're saying in this article, companies have pulled back the spending on maintaining their technology in general? So from an IT standpoint, they're not investing in virtualization. They're not investing in cloud technology. They're not investing in new wireless and things like that. In the AV world, as an integrator, I'm still seeing a lot of companies say, hey, you know what, just give me the VGA for right now because I don't want to spend all the money on it. Well,
Right.
you do know VGA is going away next year, right? You know, the PC manufacturers are no longer supporting it, and any PC you buy is not going to have VGA connector on it. What are you going to do about that? Well, it's okay. It'll get me by for right now. We'll deal with it when it gets here. And so I see this kind of technology deficit where companies, even the stuff they're investing in now, they're not really investing in it. It's just kind of putting a patch on it. Get me through, get me by.
Yeah. It's not a talent deficit. It's a perspective deficit.
Exactly.
You know, and so the AV companies have always been slow to change. You know, those of us who've dealt with broadcast engineers know this very well. They like a piece of copper and a BNC connector, you know, and yet they can do it all with fiber. So with many less wires, you know.
Well, or Gig E. You know, we started moving a lot of stuff over to Gig E.
Right. So, you know, it's more about people being willing to go into the technologies. Now, in the commercial AV world, we're somewhat driven by our customers. And so, you know, you try to explain to the customer that VGA's fallen away. Well, you know, everything we got right now is a VGA plug on it. We're just going to stick with that. What are you going to do? You're still going to sell them a VGA system, you know. But we all know that we're going to have to go back into those facilities and upgrade them one way or another. They're going to be forced into it, just like people were forced into digital broadcast or HDMI. They're, you know, forced into it by what's available and what people want to have. So it's a process over time.
Very cool. Matthew, you guys don't have a AV deficit, do you?
Matthew?
Yeah.
I think he took offense at that, Tim.
I'm sorry. Matt, Scott.
My mother just walked into the room.
Oh, geez, be quiet.
What the heck is going on?
Well, you're being quiet, so I was trying to...
Seriously, do we have an AV deficit in Canada?
Well...
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sometimes I forget because of your lack of accent where you're really at. Never mind.
I know. You know, just as Mark was saying, this is something that we see everywhere. I'm still continually amazed at the number of commercial jobs that we spec where, just as he said, everybody wants VGA. Why? Because they know it and love it. It's the old standard that they understand. And as soon as we say anything digital, they look at us and go, I'm sorry, what? Oh, That's, you mean hold on, wait, back up. And that's how the conversations usually go. So yeah, there's a vast majority of companies that are in this realm, and yeah, it always, you know, it always comes down to a budget thing. So when they see it as being more expensive, they don't care that it's going away. They don't care that we say it's dying, because again, to them, they may not be buying, you know, a boatload of new computers for their whole office next year when VGA will no longer be available. That's their mindset, is that as soon as this dies, well then yeah, maybe we'll address that. But as of now, no, that affects my bottom line, and honestly, I just don't want to spend the money on AV.
But do you correct me if I'm wrong, both Matt and Mark. What I'm seeing is just this gap, this jump over digital infrastructure, and people immediately wanting to go to wireless technologies. And you know, like we were talking the Apple TV earlier, I got people that want to integrate Apple TVs and they want to be able to stream from their iPads to their projectors, but they don't want to put the HDMI cable in the wall plate.
Well, if I can jump in here, Mark, one of the biggest things we see is that especially, I know it's there in the larger, say, Fortune 500 companies, but they're all used to having to go through all the hoops to get anything done, anything accomplished. In a lot of the smaller commercial situations, yeah, we definitely see that, because it's something where they don't want the cable, they don't want the plug. That's not cool. How come their kid can come home and
unplug me?
Exactly, and swipe something up from their iPad onto their TV. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to see. And most times they don't care that it's not a commercial product, and it's not a commercial application, and it's not designed to work flawlessly all the time in a office building full of access points and all the other things that we have to deal with. They don't care, because again, they're not the technology specialists. We are.
Isn't that kind of the flip that's happened over the last 20 years? I mean, it used to be that the broadcast and the pro realm of our industry is what drove the commercial. And now it's the residential that's driving what you put into the boardroom. Because you're right. They come home and they see their teenage kid swiping something and throwing it wirelessly up on the big screen, and they're wondering why the heck they still have to plug in their laptop to do a presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is there's always been these, commercials and stuff of the business pro going to a meeting with just a BlackBerry, and boom, his presentation is on the screen. And it doesn't matter that wasn't, as a rule possible anywhere.
Yeah, because you were using a BlackBerry for credit.
Well, that was, part A of the problem. But, again, that's just that disconnect. They see the coolness and the cool factor of what's possible. Gosh, I honestly did a quote for a commercial client a couple weeks ago, and they wanted to know what it would cost to put in that virtual touchscreen that they use on, I think it's like NCIS LA. where you just, it's like a sheet of glass, and you grab it and you twist it and you spin it and you flick it all the way around the room to the other side. And their heart, you could see their heart breaking when I said, yeah, that's really just some After Effects and Cinema 4D graphics.
No, you should have given them a quote.
No, hey, actually,
$10 million.
Matt, actually, Matt,
$10?
You say that in jest, but we did a project for a local customer here in St. Louis. No, it wasn't that fancy by any stretch of the imagination, but using a V panel and giving them the cool swipe control and things in their security room, we were able to throw up things and make it interactive for the security director to be able to monitor this 180 some security cameras that he's got out on his campus. And man, you talk about cool. That was cool, but it's still not what people think it is.
No, yeah. and that's the thing is, everybody thinks that, in that situation, it's literally, we'll take the V panel out of the box, plug it in, and boom, you're done.
Right.
And it's no. This is like hours upon hours upon hours.
Yes.
Of
lots of
Crestron programming and everything else. Like I remember the first time we tried to program the V panel from Crestron with the swipe when they first brought out swipe. Just for a simple little Resi thing to flip the pages. Mm-hmm. And that was hours of programming just to flip the bloody pages.
Yes.
And, for a lot of clients, that's when I look at that and go, okay, so we could provide, especially in Resi, we could provide a V panel with flipping and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or we could throw in Sonos and download the app.
Right.
I'm going with Sonos.
Yeah. There you go.
All right.
Not that I'm a huge Sonos.
You better get control of this one, Tim.
I know, because he's starting to.
I'm ranting now.
No, he's going off onto Sonos land, and
I know. That goes nowhere good fast.
All right. On that note, we're going to start wrapping up. First, though, the reason that Mark is really with us is Mark is a part of a new Crestron group called the Independent Technical Service Providers Council. Actually, one of our good buddies, Adrian Boyd, who's been on the show more than once, is also a part of it. Mark, kind of tell us real quickly about the group and how people can get invited, and tell them actually where you guys' booth is going to be.
Our booth is going to be in the Central Hall, very close to the House of Worship Pavilion. I don't have the exact booth number.
It is 5653.
Oh, yes, that's right.
C5653.
Central Hall. It's the first time that this council's emerging to the industry. We're actually part of Infocom. We're under the Infocom umbrella. Mm-hmm. There's 9 councils that are different sectors of the industry. That the councils is basically a way for different groups of people to work with the Infocom staff and the larger membership body to participate in things like help create standards, represent their part of the industry, and so forth and so on. So we're a nonprofit subgroup of the Infocom organization. And our particular group is comprised of integrators and other people, other kinds of companies that are service providers. We don't sell products primarily. Some of us sell a small amount of products. Some of us just sell cable when we're on a particular job and things like that. But basically what we do is provide services to other organizations that do have those delivery systems in place, like dealers and VARs, even distributors and large consulting firms, and even occasionally directly to a university or a very large corporation. And we go out and do installations, service, commissioning. We have members that we provide technicians for live event staffing even. So anything under that umbrella of providing services is the primary focus. And certainly any companies in the industry that feel that they're somewhere in that category are welcome to contact us and look at joining. There's no cost to being a part of an Infocom council per se. Our particular council has asked that you be a commercial member so that you can participate in the conference calls and the meetings. But it's basically an open membership only in the sense of that you're not a dealer or an equipment seller as your primary focus. All of the other councils are based on similar aspects. The Independent Programmers Council, the Independent Consultants Council. One council, the Silk Council, is actually comprised of the dealers. And then there's a Manufacturers Council. So, it's a way of representing different parts of
aspects of the industry, yeah.
Yeah, being able to get together and communicate and look at what we'd like to support. Like right now, we're looking at becoming involved with the Silk Council on the labor guidelines subcommittee, which is going to create basically a book of standards that salespeople and project managers can look at and say, okay, how long does it really take to do this? We're getting ready to do this bid. What does the industry say it takes to install this equipment versus what we normally experienced ourselves? So by collaborating information together, we can help create these things. That's how the certifications, the CTS was created. That's how the best practices and standards have been created by these councils and committees working together and sharing information. So it's very exciting, and we really appreciate Infocom supporting us. I've worked for 4 years to find other companies that could fit into this category and participate. And in the beginning, I went to the Infocom staff and said, can you direct me to other companies like mine? And they said, no, we have no way to do that. We wouldn't know how to do that. Because we were all lumped into the dealer category. Yeah. You're integrators, so you must be dealers. How could you integrate and not sell equipment? Well, in the IT world, that happens all the time. So, outsourcing labor is a new force across many industries because it's expensive to have people sitting around a shop waiting for projects.
Yeah.
So this is a growing area. So as we went around the convention, we basically just had to slog our way around the convention and meet people and ask our clients, who else do you guys use that, similar capacity. And over 4 years, me and Scott Welsh and Patty McGoldrick finally found 25 other companies that were similar. And they all said the same thing. Wow, I'd love to be recognized. I'd love to be able to walk up to people and say, yes, I'm this sector of the industry, and have them understand that. So our struggle is for people to actually understand that we exist. And I'll tell you what, people told me the dealers would be very resistant to us, quote unquote, organizing. Actually, they were the first ones to get behind us and say, so can I get that list of 25?
Well, that's good. All right. So if you're interested in either joining the council or at least learning more about them, go by their booth, C5653. Also, they're going to be having cake, which is always a good thing. Wednesday afternoon, the 13th of June at Infocom at 3 o'clock. So, Mark, thank you so much. What is your website, and do you have a Twitter if people would like to get a hold of you?
I don't have a Twitter account. I'm kind of old-fashioned. But we're working on that. We have a website, which is wirewizards.tv.
Okay.
And, you can come by the booth and get a member directory. That list is now available to the entire AV industry. Awesome. And we have 33 members right now. I predict by next year we'll probably have over 100 easily. They're out there. The problem is locating them and getting them to participate. And with this booth, the point of the booth is for us to emerge really, big time to the industry and enable that to happen. So,
Awesome.
it'll be exciting to have people come by and learn more about us.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I do appreciate it. Also with us is Matt Scott from Omega Audio Video. What is your website, and which Twitter would you like to promote, sir?
Which Twitter?
You've got like 10.
No, yeah, probably. My company website is OmegaAudioVideo.com, and my personal website is MattDScott.com, and you can find us on Twitter at Omega Audio Video, at Matt D. Scott, and definitely at trade shows at Matt Scott's Hair.
Yes, at Matt Scott's Hair. Oh, good Lord. Also with us from Tech Electronics in St. Louis, Missouri, Mr. Michael Drainer. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be with you folks today.
And what is your Twitter and your websites?
You can find me on Twitter at Michael Drainer, all one word. And website is techelectronics.com, TECHELECTRONICS.com.
Excellent. My name is Tim Albright. If you would like to follow me and the sparse ramblings that I have, it is TD Tim David Albright at TD Albright. But more importantly for me and the guys here, go check out either our website. Is that right, Matt? It's up. Okay.
It will be. It will be up for Infocom.
By the time you hear this, it will be. It's at AVNation.tv. It's brand spanking new. AVNation.tv to find out all about us, what we do here, who's involved. Matt Scott has worked tirelessly, his fingers to the bone, and it's actually quite pretty. To get this or any other podcast, go to our friends at Rave Pubs. RavePubs.com/AVNation. RavePubs.com/AVNation. That's all the time we have for AV Week.